You're listening to the Martin Clinic Wellness Podcast. This is the show where we bring you the best tips, tricks, and nutritional hacks to help you and your family get healthier. You will also hear what works and doesn't work, so you don't have to waste your time and money. All right, let's get started. Hello, my name is Dr. Tony Martin Jr. of the Martin Clinic, and I'm here with my dad, Dr. Tony Martin Sr. of the Martin Clinic. And on today's episode, we want to talk about that study that came out, and it did get a fair amount of press because we did hear a lot about it, and we were hoping to get at this a little earlier, but we just weren't able to do it until now. It's that study that showed that over-the-counter non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs like ibuprofen, you know, those things you can buy at a pharmacy, basically raise the risk of heart disease by almost 20%. So we're not talking a small amount. We're talking, and the more you use it, the more it increases your risk, right? So we'll talk about that today. So today's episode, we're going to talk about that study a little bit, talk about the implications of that, and then we're also going to share with you, in our opinion, outside of an injury, where somebody blew their knee out or they broke their hip or whatever, outside of an injury, we're going to talk about the two biggest reasons why people end up with joint pain, osteoarthritis, and all those things. We'll talk about that. So we're going to give you the two main reasons why in this episode. But first, before we do that, let's just talk about that, the fallacy of the concept, first of all, of over-the-counter. Yeah. And, you know, we say
means it's safe, right?
That,
Imagine they took it away from prescription, meaning that, oh, you know what? We've decided this is absolutely safe, right?
And, I mean, we can get quite angry at this. And this makes us quite frustrated as well when they want to take vitamins like vitamin C off the shelf, put them behind the counter, and leave something that increases your risk by 20% on the counter. And people pop them. Like, I was in practice forever. You were in practice forever. I mean, people pop these things like they're candy.
Yeah.
How many times do we hear, I take one every day?
Every day. That, you know, women.
I go for a run. I take one after a run. I'm sore.
I have a headache. They live with headaches every day. They take ibuprofen every day. And when it's a hormonal issue, and instead of, you know, and the thing is, when you talk about non-steroidal anti-inflammatories, okay, the list is, you know, from Tylenol to Advil to, you know, you name
Aleve, which is Apoxin.
Yeah. But the granddaddy of them all, and I just want to link this a little bit because it's always something that's been in my craw for a long time, because nobody went to jail over this, was the fact that Celebrex, its sister, Vioxx, killed what they know of. 50,000 people died after taking Vioxx, okay, before they took it off the market. I mean, they knew.
And on that note, medically, if it happens, if you took something today and 14 days later something happened, you can't tie it.
No.
Either you cannot tie something that far into the future. So you can imagine if they got 50,000 people that they proved
50,000 people
imagine
died.
how many other people died.
And you know what? Not one person went to jail.
Even though they knew.
They knew. They knew. The drug company knew. The FDA knew. And they had so much money invested, and they were making so much money.
Yeah, because at a point, everybody we talked to,
they put it in their budget to settle their lawsuits, and not a person went to jail. I still get angry over that.
Yeah, because and especially when, you know, you have the FDA and, you know, coming in and talking about regulating vitamin C.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean,
it's so frustrating.
When you hear family doctors, well, I don't know if you should take, you know, your B12 levels are too high. Oh, yeah? And what does that mean? Like,
Yeah,
did you ever see somebody get sick? Or vitamin D, right? Like, oh, like you're taking too much vitamin D. You know, they've never seen a case of it. Not one. Nobody ever wrote something up, you know, where doctors say, well, no, you know why you just got sick there? Because you were taking never.
I know.
Okay, you know what I mean? But, anyway, but when I talk about, like, that's why I cringe at these non-steroidal anti-inflammatories.
Well, because
I've been telling
the average person thinks they're safe. If you have kids,
they're not safe.
You have to. I mean, you have to look at those and be very cautious with them. Like if you find yourself taking a couple in a month, you have to find out why, there's something going on. There's a bigger issue at play that you have to worry about more than just taking these things and masking the symptoms, right? Because we always give this analogy. Those things are like you're driving on the highway and your engine starts making noise. So you basically, lean over and turn up the radio so you can't hear it anymore. Because that's all they do. They don't address, they don't fix anything. Do you know how many patients used to say, well, I'm taking, I twisted my ankle and they're taking Advil. And I'm like, well, is your ankle bothering you? No, I'm just taking it for the anti-inflammatory. I want to bring the swelling down. I'm like, well, elevate your ankle. Like, there are so many other ways to bring the swelling down. You're taking a drug. Yeah. They don't look at them as drugs, right? Are you taking any drugs? No. Okay, well, have you taken Advil in the last week? Oh, yeah. Well, those are drugs. And we're finding out as time goes on, not only are they so hard on the stomach, they cause, how many cases of abdominal bleeding do they cause a year? Yeah. They're hard on the stomach. Now we're finding out as well that they increase your risk by 20% of heart disease.
Well, iatrogenic, which is, medically caused side effects, right? From is now what did they say? It's gone ahead of car accidents for killing people in the United States of America.
Well, people are on so many drugs, so many medications. Yeah. You look at a file when somebody's coming in and it's just like, man, you need a part-time assistant just to go look up all the drugs they're on. It's crazy. And then they wonder, then I'm not feeling good. I have no energy. Yeah, well, you're on your liver, like you're on 8 drugs. You're on 5 drugs. And you're taking Tylenol or you're taking Advil. So, you could see.
You wondered if again, this is just a pet peeve of mine. If you went into every senior residence, took everyone off their meds.
Oh, yeah, they'd be so much better off.
Stuck them, give them B12 shots like they used to do in the old days. And, just give them B12 and give them vitamin D. And get them off all their medication. Just wonder
take them outside, put them in the sun.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Those poor folks,
they're medicated, right? Yeah. And they
drug them to death. Anyway.
And that's the thing, right? Like that's unfortunately that drug is viewed as healthcare nowadays. That's even again, this is being recorded in October, and it's breast cancer, breast cancer awareness month, it's every drug company in the world loves it because they raise a lot of money and they can go research drugs, more drugs, right? Breast cancer ain't going to be cured by a drug. No. It's a metabolic disease. There's too many things that go on in there. There's not a drug that's going to cure breast cancer.
But that's all they're looking at.
Yeah. But they don't want.
So what's the connection? Like just
let's move on now. And the reason for heart disease is because even though they're anti-inflammatory, they cause inflammation. Yeah, which is a funny thing.
Yeah.
And they're finding out that a lot of these drugs, right? Like they shut off a bunch of different mechanisms in the body associated with pain. And some of them are actually important mechanisms that when you shut those things off, they're not without consequence, right? Which is what a drug do. A drug, sometimes they're selective, in terms of specific enzymes, and sometimes they shut a whole bunch of things off. And then you find out, well, even though there are, like those COX inhibitors, even though some of those are, bad for you, some of them you need. So they shut out even the ones off, and it creates this whole cascade of events. And it increases your risk of heart disease. Yeah. And heart disease is the number 1 killer. Still, by the way, even though every third adult is on a statin drug, it's the number 1 killer. Which, if cholesterol, again, was, the cause, we would see a big dent. But that's another podcast that we just did recently.
How many, and again, when they say that 20% increase of likelihood of you having a heart attack with non-steroidal anti-inflammatories, right? How many do you think, okay? Because look at, like in our hometown here, how many people have had a heart attack their cholesterol is normal, which is not unusual. It's, some are saying now close to 70% of people that have a heart attack have no issues of cholesterol whatsoever. But how much of that would actually be reported that if this person, for example, they've been on an over-the-counter, Tylenol, Advil, naproxen, or whatever they're taking, right, on a daily basis, maybe for arthritis, maybe for whatever they were taking it for, an injury, chronic low back pain. How many people do you know that got spinal injuries and they're taking these things and then they have a heart attack, but they say, but they had a heart attack.
Yeah, they're not tying it in.
Did they really tie that in?
No, they haven't. That's the thing.
So when did they say 20%?
Well, the 20%, and they found again, because this kind of is like the magic number in medicine. They found, and I'll read this part in the study for you because there's another comment from the researcher that is really interesting that we're going to spend the rest of the time talking on. But what they found was this: is that basically they said that when they use these things, that within the next 14 days they had an admission into the hospital. So this is what the study found, that people who had taken these NSAIDs in the previous 14 days had a 19% increased risk of hospital admission for heart failure.
Wow. Compared
to people who had, so it's basically that's what they're doing. Within the 14-day period, they had a 20% increased chance of being admitted for, these people had pre-existing conditions, obviously, ahead of time, but it goes to show you there's a lot of people out there that have pre-existing conditions that they don't know they have pre-existing conditions, right? And then I want to just read you a quote from the researcher, and then we'll spend the rest of the time talking about this, because they can't figure this out why, and we know why. This is what he said, all right? So, first, I'll read you the first part of the statement. He said, this large observational study reinforces previous research showing that some NSAIDs, a group of drugs commonly taken by patients with joint problems, increase the risk of developing heart failure. And then he says this: it has been known for some years now that such drugs need to be used with cautions. Then why in the world is it still over the counter, first of all? Right? It's been known for some years. But anyways, this is the quote here I want to talk about here. It says, so since heart and joint problems often coexist, not a coincidence, particularly in the elderly, this study serves as a reminder to doctors, blah, 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 blah. So here you have a researcher saying that heart problems and joint problems tend to coexist. And that brings us to what the main point of this episode is to talk about why that is. Because unless you have injured a joint, bad enough that it changed the mechanics, changed your biomechanics, led to altered gait and everything, where you ended up with an osteoarthritis type of joint. We're not talking about that. If you're like everybody else who is like, we see it all the time. Oh, you got arthritis, and they never even played a sport, really, never hurt themselves bad enough to get arthritis, especially all over the place. The reason why it coexists with heart disease is because they're caused by the same thing. It's the same cause. Heart disease is caused by, Dr. Kraft did a lot of research in this area, and he would say anybody with heart disease has undiagnosed type 2 diabetes because, again, it's insulin resistance. For many people that are listening to this, if you've got sore joints, that is a sign, just like we did a podcast a while ago about carpal tunnel syndrome, nerve entrapment. It's a sign for a lot of people that they have insulin resistance.
It's because why? What does insulin do?
Well, yeah, it's a growth hormone.
Growth hormone causes inflammation.
Highly inflammatory, right? It can be highly inflammatory. Again, the cells of the joints become insulin resistant, and it affects the uptake of nutrients. On and on. It's highly inflammatory. So if you are listening and you have joint pain,
not caused by,
yes.
Hey, you got joint pain, you were in a car accident. We're not talking about that. Although,
it could be, absolutely.
Food-wise, we tell you, like, you go on a very anti-inflammatory diet.
And research has shown that. Research has shown people heal faster when they have a low-carbohydrate diet.
I prove it to patients. I prove it to patients on a daily basis.
But if you're listening and you have joint pain and you're not in that, accident.
Look at fibromyalgia.
Yeah. Well, and in fact, I just saw a study, I read one yesterday on how even their brain fog, they are more likely to have a lot of mental, we call mishaps.
Yeah.
If they are insulin resistant, it increases the likelihood of that happening. It's all tied in.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing. And the reason why, again, is because heart disease is, if you have heart disease, high blood pressure, heart disease, anything you are in, those are symptoms of insulin resistant. That's all, that is insulin resistance. So joint pain for a lot of people, and we see this in our clinic all the time. We get emails about this all the time. Their joints don't hurt anymore when they fix the insulin resistance. All the time, it's incredible. They had bad joint pain. They fixed their insulin resistance. All of a sudden, it's like, yeah, you know what? My joints aren't sore anymore. Because for a lot of people, not everybody, for a lot of people listening, the primary cause of joint pain is insulin resistance. Now, the secondary cause for a lot of people, and sometimes it's a combination of both, and this surprised people, is that there is what they call a joint gut axis. There's a direct connection between the health of your gut and the health of your joints. So leaky gut can definitely lead to joint pain. Malabsorption issues, inflammation, the whole 9 yards leads to joint pain. So if you're listening and you have joint pain and you haven't hurt yourself, there's a good chance that one or both of those is the cause of it, which is why we get tremendous success when we deal with people with joint pain, because we fix the root issues, which is generally leaky gut and insulin resistance.
Absolutely.
So it's an incredible, so when we see these studies again, what we want to encourage you is that, listen, if you are taking an ibuprofen every day or some NSAID every day because you have joint pain and you haven't hurt yourself, but your joints are sore, or go after the cause. You're not fixing the cause at all. You're just increasing your chance of heart disease. Go after the cause. Ask yourself, could it be leaky gut syndrome? Could it be insulin resistance? And then also, listen, we get these emails a lot as well. People are saying, like, I jog every day and I have to take an Advil, then find another activity, please. If you have to take an over-the-counter pain medication in order to keep up an activity every day, there are a lot of other activities out there that you can do.
And the other thing is, look at alternatives, right? I mean, they might not be as immediate, because if you take a Tylenol, it's immediate.
Well, let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Let's talk about what we would use in our office.
Exactly. Because, listen, I mean, we're no strangers to injuries. We're no strangers to pain. We treat it every day. You and I have been in sports all of our lives, and, I've had a couple of good spills and injuries, and I'm still playing ball, at my age, and I like to be very active. But you know what? Listen, but I'm a big guy on anti-inflammatory.
Well, let's talk about our 4 recommended things for joint pain, for people that have chronic joint pain or people. Let's talk about the 4.
And tremendous alternatives.
Yes. I mean, we
might take a little longer,
but we hear the feedback every day.
Tylenol, like it ain't
Tylenol shuts off. It clips the wire.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's instant. You got a headache, 15 minutes later, headache's gone.
It clips the wire. Like you said, I like that. But you know what? At the end of the day, when you start looking what it does.
Yeah, it's.
Wow.
That's right.
Why not?
Every once in a while, if you have to clip the wire, that's fine. But get to the cause.
Yeah.
So let's talk about real quickly. We have a few minutes left. Let's talk about the 4 things that we recommend for people with joint pain all the time. First of all, high DHA.
Yep.
Anti-inflammatory. DHA is an omega-3 fatty acid. It's a specific type of omega-3 that we like. Get a lot of DHA.
Very anti-inflammatory.
The problem is that people just don't take enough of it.
Yeah.
If they're like, I take 1,000 milligrams of fish oil. Well, congratulations.
Like I had to have dental surgery done a few years back, right? And talking to the orthodontist guy, and I said, look, let me do it my way. Like he gave me a prescription for anti-inflammatory, and he gave me a prescription for an antibiotic and whatever, right? I mean, he's just doing his job, right? But I said, listen, doc, I'm going to show you, right? I said, let me do it my way, and I'm going to do it all natural. And, what did I do? Well, exactly what we're talking about here, right? I just hammered myself with, anti-inflammatory.
Yeah,
natural,
DHA,
right?
you were like
DHA.
swimming in it.
I was sliding out of rooms. I took so much oil, right?
Yeah.
and probiotic.
Well, that's the second thing,
Yeah.
right? Probiotics, again, because there is a massive leaky gut, and research has shown a direct connection between joint and gut health.
Yeah.
So probiotics.
Plus, okay, because you're one of the greatest anti-inflammatories is vitamin D. And if you don't have good flora in your microflora in your gut, you're not even absorbing that properly, right?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Because, so people don't realize that, that probiotic is not only just fixing leaky gut, it's actually helping you absorb your anti-inflammatory vitamin D, right? So, I mean, I love that, right?
And
so I take probiotic.
The third one that we absolutely love for this is pine bark extract, which we use in our Navitol.
Yeah.
Pine bark extract is a, first of all, it boosts nitric oxide, increases blood flow. Yeah. Fantastic for that.
So the ambulance,
it brings
goes
everything
to the
it
site,
needs.
right? Much better.
It's a tremendous natural COX inhibitor.
Yeah.
We love pine bark extract for joints. And the fourth thing, our kind of foolproof joint program, in a sense, DHA, probiotics, pine bark extract, and we're big fans of curcumin, turmeric.
Yeah, it's in our inflammation formula.
We throw it in there. That we built our formula around that. We love it.
Like, it's fantastic, and that's what I did. So I showed him. Okay, so a couple of days later, like when he just wanted to do the follow up, like he couldn't believe it. Like I went in there and I said, well, that's what I did. I didn't take one of your medications, and I did it naturally with me, and but I said, look, you could tell all your patients to do this. No side effects.
No,
felt real
except
good.
You feel better. Yeah,
the healing was incredible.
Yeah,
right?
and
I mean, he couldn't deny it. He said, okay, like you didn't even need an antibiotic. I said, well, I did a natural antibiotic. I took enough probiotic to kill any kind of infection that might have wanted to raise its ugly head, right? So anyway, I'm just saying that, look, I've proven this to patients over and over and over again, that if you do these things that we just talked about, then, look, you might need to, I like your expression of snipping the wire, but you won't have to do it often. And chronic pain is now controlled, like compared to... And, and then, of course, you're taking inflammation away from your heart. Yeah, you're taking inflammation away from your brain. You're taking inflammation away from vital organs that are absolutely essential. Like, and so, anyway, I mean, the advantages of it are incredible. So there are alternatives.
There are alternatives. And that's what we want you to understand is that there are alternatives. And if you find yourself reaching for one of those a lot, get to the cause. And typically it's insulin resistance and leaky gut. Well, we're out of time, so we want to thank you for listening to this episode. If you have any questions, you can either email us at info@martinclinic.com. You can go to our Facebook page and hit us up there. Also, if you're not a subscriber to our newsletters, we would, again, we talk about a lot of these things in there, so we'd encourage you to go to our website and sign up for our newsletters. And then finally, if you haven't reviewed us on iTunes, we would, again, we'd greatly appreciate if you'd go there and leave us an honest review at iTunes. So again, we want to thank you for listening and be sure to tune in again next week. You've been listening to the Martin Clinic Wellness Podcast, brought to you by martinclinic.com. We are truly thankful that you took the time out of your busy day to listen. Talk soon.